International Women's Day is here, and this day cannot be left alone by any lady who would like to show that women have changed and women have been finally empowered. At this pretext, I'm going to share the story, as I understand it, of Annie Besant, a woman like no other. No other. Many of you would have heard of her, and many of you know about her thanks to the freedom struggle in India. But you don't know the details about her life and her struggles, her fights, and her victories. So she, at the age of 19, was married to a clergyman named Frank Besant. Her name was Annie Wood before that. And Frank Besant was a vicar in a small town called Sipsey. This is the church that he was a vicar of. So at the age of 19, she married this man. And very soon she found that she had major differences with him. He was always supporting the landowners and the rich people in that community, whereas she saw the utter poverty of the villages, the extreme weather conditions they bore, and the poor wages that they got from the landlords. So she was already of a socialist bent of mind. And the marriage was collapsing for other reasons too. Her belief in the Catholic Church and the faith was diminishing because also partly because of her husband's violent nature, who would be preaching kindness and solidarity on the pulpit, but at home was violent and angry with her. Also, like she had already been writing various stories and making her own money, and he wouldn't let her have her own money because women were not allowed to have any property of their own. So whatever she earned also was given to him. And after 7 years and 2 children later, she found it simply impossible to continue when he threatened to throw her out of the house because she refused to be part of the communion, which is a small event that takes place in the church. And when they were divorced, there was no real official divorce. When they were separated, he took custody of the son, and as Besant got the custody of her daughter. Her views regarding the Catholic religion was very radical. In the Catholic religion, there is the original sin is conferred on the woman Eve because it was she who ate the fruit of temptation and led Adam to fall, his spirit to fall. So in a way, women have been blamed all along. And this whole idea that women are weaker, are evil, she rebelled against. And so finally she had separated, moved back to London, and started working as a journalist. And in her journalistic career, she found that there were a lot of inequalities in wages and also working conditions in the factories, especially in the match factories. One particular factory where she found that there were even children working there for very low wages, and they were fined. Even on those wages, they were fined. Even if they were caught talking or wanted to go to the toilet, they would be fined from their salary. Also, children were working, and they were also getting a bone disease thanks to the industrial materials that were being used to make the matches. So she fought for them. She arranged a strike. She marched, and she won the case. And they were given all the correct, their demands are fulfilled by the court, by their companies. And here you have this beautiful plaque which has been placed in the Match Girls factory unit in 1888. This was led by Annie Besant. And so after that, I mean, she continued her work in social service. She found that the real cause for poverty was a number of children that the poor had. And to prevent that, there was a simple methods of contraception, about which he wrote a pamphlet, co-authored it with Charles Bradlaugh, who's there in the background in this picture, and in this pamphlet, which is called Fruits of Philosophy. And this pamphlet was... people put a case against her, saying this is an indecent pamphlet. She fought for her own case. She didn't take a lawyer. She fought her own case, and she said that is this pamphlet indecent, or is the poverty that you see in East London, full of children, unfed, unclothed, really indecent? So that battle too was won, and this was she was the first among so many to talk about contraception and prevention rather than abortion, but prevention of children. So soon, I mean, it was 10 years. She had worked for other social causes. She fought for the dock workers. And finally, 10 years later, she was recognized. She stood for elections in the London School Board, and her slogan was "No More Hungry Children." And she made the feminist side of her socialism also. She said, I asked the electors to vote for me and non-electors to vote for me too, because women are wanted on the board. There are too few women candidates. And astonishingly, Annie Besant came on top of the poll with over 15,000 votes. And in her victory speech, she said, 10 years ago, under a cruel Christian law, Christian bigotry robbed me of my little children. Now the care of 7,63,680 children of London is placed partly in my hands. So that is how she came up in life. She shifted in her beliefs from Catholicism to free thinking to socialism to Marxism, and finally to becoming a theosophist when in 1889, while reviewing a book written by H.P. Blavatsky, the founder of the Theosophical Society, the book that what she was reviewing was A Secret Doctrine. She was immediately drawn because this was exactly what she was thinking all along. She gave up all her work in Fabian socialism and all the other works that she had taken up and became an active member of the Theosophical Society. She took part in the Chicago lecture of world religions representing theosophy. She went to India in 1894 and lectured all over India, where lakhs of people used to come and see her. In July 1898, along with Dr. Arthur Richards, she set up the Central Hindu School in Banaras, whose motto was "Knowledge is Vitality." In 1902, she established the Sindh College in Hyderabad. And in 1907, by then, she had established many centers of theosophy in India. And she was elected the second president of the Theosophical Society after Alcott. And in 1916, she launched the famous Home Rule League. In June 1917, Annie was arrested and interned at a hill station. And so she was kind of imprisoned in a homestay. But finally, the English government had to give way and they had to make some significant concessions. This was a big victory for the Indians. And ultimately, Indians began to realize that they could have self-governance. And when she was released, though for this to happen, for her to be released, Mahatma Gandhi himself had campaigned, had stood for her to be released. And finally, when she was released, she was elected the president of the Indian National Congress for 1 year. This was the highest honor that was given to her. This was the home rule flag that she flung when she was imprisoned in the homestay in Ooty. You can look at this flag. And Gandhi and Nehru, two of the shapers of modern India, credit her with awakening their pride in India, as did Rabindranath Tagore, Bhagwan Das, citing Sri Sarojini Naidu, the first Indian Congress president of the Indian National Congress, who said that Besant is entitled by her great qualities, her work, and her experience to say that if Annie Besant had not been Gandhiji would not be. So, this is the extent of her contribution to India. She was a champion for India's freedom and was against British colonialism. And she fought for women, for women's voting rights. She fought for their wages, for their position in society, in the governance of the countries. So much later, though, she had lost the custody of the children when they were young. At the age of 21, when Mabel had come of age, her daughter, Mabel joined Annie Besant in Chennai and did a lot of work for the Theosophical Society and was always after that with her mother. And so was the son. In this picture, you see Mabel with Annie and her child, that is Annie's grandchild. So Annie Besant, definitely a woman like no other. She fought for women's rights, women's voting rights, established the first college for women in India, wrote more than 300 books, started the Home Rule movement, and was the president of the Indian National Congress for a year. So what an extraordinary life that was. And she died in India on 20th September in 1933. She wrote in her own autobiography that I ask no other epitaph on my tomb, but she tried to follow truth. So I end this talk here. And I hope that you find this inspiring, that you can follow your own truth, stand up for your rights, and be heard and seen. Thank you.